Welcome to Traveler's Tales. I am your host, Greg Alonso. Today I will be your guide through history as we take a look at part 2 of The Travels of Marco Polo. Before we begin, just a quick reminder that we post new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, with special editions on Thursdays. Don't forget to hit the little bell icon to be notified each time we post new videos. Moving right along, mythology tells us one thing, while archaeology tells us another. In part 1 of the Travels of Marco Polo, we took a look at what is generally considered factual. In part 2, we will take a look at the books that were released as the Travels of Marco Polo. Did Marco Polo actually write his book, or did he dictate it to someone else? How accurate are the transformations of Marco Polo's journals? And lastly, what is Marco Polo's legacy? Today we will answer these questions as we take a look at this celebrated traveler. The book opens with the preface describing his father and uncle traveling to Bulgar, where Prince Berke Khan lived. A year later they went to Ukek and carried on to Bukhara. There an envoy from the Levant who eventually invited them to meet Kublai Khan. The great Khan had never met Europeans and was quite interested in doing so. In 1266 they reached the city of Kublai Khan at Shangdu. The Khan received the brothers with hospitality and asked them many questions regarding European legal and political system. He also inquired about the Pope and the Church of Rome. After the brothers answered all of the Khan's questions, he tasked them with delivering a letter to the Pope requesting 100 Christians acquainted with the 7 arts, which were grammar, rhetoric, logic, geometry, arithmetic, music, and astronomy. Once the brothers returned to Venice, they prepared for their return to China, this time with Marco accompanying them. This is where most of us pick up on Marco Polo's journey. He keeps a journal and documents everything he sees. Throughout his travels, Marco becomes fluent in at least 4 languages and is considered a valued asset in service of the Khan. After being in China for 17 years, the Polos return to Venice and Marco publishes his book. No, Marco does no such thing. It was during the war between Venice and Genoa, and Marco has been imprisoned and held for ransom, that Marco shares his story with someone outside of his immediate circle of family and friends. It is at this time that he meets Rustichello da Pisa that Marco relates his memoirs orally to the romantic novelist. Many scholars believe that it was Rustichello who glamorized Marco's accounts and added fantastic and romantic elements that made the book a bestseller. Rustichello did this in order to give his medieval audience exactly what they expected to find in a travel book. Apparently, from the very beginning, Marco's story aroused contrasting reactions. For some, it was met with certain disbelief. However, the Dominican father, Francesco Pipino, solemnly affirmed the book. He also defined Marco as a prudent, honored, and faithful man. Dominican brother Jacopo di Acqui explains why his contemporaries were skeptical about the content of the book. He relates that before dying, Marco Polo insisted that he had only told half of the things he had seen. Contemporary church scholars believe that Marco had a very close relationship with the members of the Dominican order in Venice, thereby suggesting that the local fathers collaborated with him for a Latin version of his book. It is then reasonable to think that the Dominicans considered Marco's book as a trustworthy piece of information for their missions in the East. Then there were the diplomatic communications between the papacy and the Mongols, were obviously another reason for endorsement. Do keep in mind that Marco Polo was not the first European to see China. He was the first to leave a detailed chronicle of his experience. Marco's account of the lands of the East provided Europeans with a clear picture of the East's geography and customs. It was also the first Western record of porcelain, coal, gunpowder, paper money, some Asian plants, and exotic animals. His travel book inspired Christopher Columbus and many other travelers. There is also substantial literature based on Polo's writings, and he influenced European cartography, leading to the introduction of the Frau Muro map. This brings us to the end of part 2 of the Travels of Marco Polo. In part 3, we will take a look at what modern scholars have to say about the travels of Marco Polo. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Traveler's Tales. If you enjoyed this video, please consider becoming a channel sponsor. Your support will enable us to continue making quality videos, and buying me a coffee always makes my day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Traveler's Tales. This really is the best way to help our channel grow. Until we meet again at the crossroads of folklore and fact, Cartistos.